This is Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the hot seat on a Media Monday. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today we'll talk to a local radio legend, the iconic Linda Ray.
County sheriffs at the Police Olympic.
New York Z with Linda Ray. The latest from Aha and more flamethrower hits coming up next. Come on home to Raymond's, come home to Uncle Ray.
She began her career in local radio in 1983 at WTLB. Throughout the 80s, 90s, and to today, she's become one of the area's most well-known and popular local disc jockeys, working for stations like KG 104, New York Z, Classic 94.9, Rock 107, Wow FM, Kiss FM, Mix 102.5, Talk 100.7, 92.7 FM, The Drive, and even at 95.5 FM before it was The Heat. Linda Ray, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. I really appreciate being here. I feel lucky to be here.
What a thrill. I feel lucky too. I'm so excited that you're here. I actually went out to Syracuse to H&M to buy stuff so I could look cool for you. You know,
you look
Linda
great.
Ray, oh
you
my
look
gosh.
So awesome.
And I used to have a bumper sticker that you autographed.
You're kidding.
I did it. New York City bumper sticker.
I
Linda
am so
Ray, the
flattered.
Fox That Rocks. Oh my gosh. So this is like so cool.
Yeah, I am very flattered to be here. I'm also very happy to be here now as sort of a senior, having gone through the business. But so many of my friends and coworkers over the years are no longer with us.
Yeah.
And I hate to start things on a kind of a sad note, but just this past year we lost Ugly, who was a huge mainstay on Rock 107. We also lost JR, his real name Jim Wrights, but JR was the program director at Rock 107 for years and years and years. Rhodey, who lived sort of across the street in Washington Mills, he would come over as a kid to learn about how everything to do with radio. Really? And he became a very much a part of Kiss FM, but he learned a lot at Rock 107 over the years. And Rhodey, Roadrunner, died at age 47.
Wow.
And then we lost Stu Shantz. He was the PD at Kiss FM for years.
Wow.
Scott Burton, we knew him as Archie. A lot of people knew him as Archie. And then there was Jack Moran. Jack Moran was on the air for years. And I didn't really work with Eric J. Price, but I knew him. He was always very kind to me. After
he was a great presence.
We were no longer in radio,
right,
and I know that
right.
he was at MVCC for a while,
Yeah.
and he's no longer with us as well.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a pretty long
A
list
lot of loss,
in just the past several years.
I'm so glad you mentioned Eric J. Price too, because I have a clip of his. We're going to play in the third segment, and he was someone who, radio is so important to people, and I think I didn't really realize that until this weekend as I started to research this and listen to these clips, and I'm thinking like, can you put into words like what radio meant to people in the 80s, in the 70s, 80s,
well,
90s,
I'll tell you,
2000s?
it was, I want to talk to you about several different aspects of radio throughout the years, but I remember doing a show called The Time for Romance on KG 104.
Yeah, me too. I remember that.
And when I first got there, during that time, I remember the songs that were very popular. And Faithfully by Journey, A Crazy for You by Madonna. Those were just a couple of the songs that were really popular. Whitney Houston was just starting. And so initially when the show first started, it was one couple per song. And I said, well, if everybody wants Faithfully, why can't I have 50 or 75 requests for one song? Till I realized I had to answer all those telephone calls. And then I said, what am I doing? Why did I ever start this? Because back in those days, we actually played records. And so not only did you have to queue up the record, answer the phone, write all the dedications down, and then you had to be able to be...
A lot of pressure. Right?
It was a lot of pressure. And then you had to be ready to go on the air and
for the commercials?
For all of it. Yeah, all of it.
Wow.
And so eventually they realized that I was handling it, but I wasn't handling it that well. They needed to get me an intern to at least put the records away. Because otherwise the records were going to get destroyed too, because they were just like all over the place.
So what did you guys do with the records back then? Were they alphabetized?
Yes, everything was
Okay, I was gonna say,
alphabetized,
what
but
would
there
you
were
do?
rows and rows and rows of
Yeah.
records. Funny story about records. I'll
You
tell
must have like a library.
Oh yeah,
you know?
huge library. So when I was a student, I went to school in Fredonia.
Mhm.
And one night, my girlfriend and I, they called us the Loud Sisters. We were both on the air on the college radio station. And one of our friends had become inebriated at a party, and he was supposed to go on the air. We took a lot of pride with our college
Yeah.
radio station. So we said, don't worry about it. We'll go in. We'll do it. Well, I don't know if we maybe had one or two also, but that night, I don't know if it was me or Leslie, but one of us crawled on the shelf to get a record,
Oh my.
and it fell, and it was like dominoes of LPs.
All the records. Oh my gosh. Oh no.
Not good.
Oh my gosh.
But when I first started in radio, there were very, very few females.
Oh,
so
yeah?
I had heard the first female radio announcer on a radio station in Binghamton, because I'm originally from the Southern Tier. And the radio station was WAAL. They called it the Whale in Binghamton. And I was 15 or 16 years old when I first heard the first female DJ. And I thought, wow, that is something that maybe I could do. I wanted really to act, but I couldn't sing and I couldn't dance. And I was from this little teeny town, and the chances of really making it were fairly slim. So when I told my parents this was something that I might want to do, and I told my guidance counselor, everybody said, you know what, I think you'd be good at that. Let's try to help you. So they hooked me up with a radio station in Oneonta, and my senior year in high school, I went to the radio station for half to 3/4 of the day and learned a lot. And then
What a cool
I started at Herkimer County Community College. Back then it wasn't Herkimer College, it was HCCC.
Yep.
And they got me a job, it was more of an internship, at WTLB-AM as a news stringer. And in those days I was young, but I was fearless.
So
And
what was a stringer?
So a stringer
For those who don't know.
is a person that goes out. One of the big stories they had me do one night was Senator Moynihan was making a speech at the beaches. So I went out with a tape recorder and had a quick interview with the senator, and then I would come back to the radio station. I would write a script for the morning news person, and I would cut a clip of him speaking in between the parts of the story.
Yeah.
So they could come in the morning, read the script, hit the little sound bite,
Right.
and have a full news story.
Yeah.
Well, back in those days,
like a freelancer.
Yeah,
Okay,
freelancer. Yeah. So I'm tooling around in my old car trying to find the beaches in Rome. I did find it, and I remember coming back to the radio station, putting the whole package together, and then I was driving back to my apartment in Herkimer. But the guys on Rock 107, I already knew all those guys, and they would sort of pick on me. And I remember Kevin Quinn sending out the Pina Colada song because he knew I hated it. I hated that song. So that night on my way back to campus, I hear Kevin making fun of me. So a couple years later, long story short, I'm working at WDOS in Oneonta part-time, and I'm working as a waitress to make ends meet. And I was telling people that I was getting ready to maybe move to Arizona, live with my sister. And all of a sudden, this guy called me on my phone at home where I lived with my parents. And he had met me as a cocktail waitress, and he said, I know you said you wanted to be a DJ. He said, and I took down your phone number. Well, I saw an ad in the Albany newspaper that they're looking for somebody at WTLB-AM.
Oh
well,
my
this is where
gosh.
I had worked as a news stringer.
You were discovered.
So, but I already had connections.
Yeah, you already had connections, but still, I mean.
Yeah, so I called and I spoke with Art Levy, who was the program director. He said, well, I've got somebody coming in from Watertown, a guy. He's coming in on the bus. I said, well, what time's he supposed to be there? And he told me, and I said, well, I'm about an hour and a half away, but I'm going to try to beat him there. So,
Good for you. Good for you.
So I didn't take no for an answer. I brought my demo tape, which was actually physically on a tape that they had to put on a reel-to-reel.
Like a reel-to-reel, yeah.
Yeah. And I got the job. And when I started on WTLB AM, I was on at night.
Oh,
And I don't know how much you know about AM radio, but you're supposed to turn the power down at night.
I was gonna say it doesn't go as far, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't go very far, and but it does if you forget to turn the power down.
Oh.
And one night,
So they could hear you like all over.
yeah. So one night I forgot to turn the power down, and they got a call from Canada the next day.
Wow. Who is this Linda
Yeah.
Ray?
They said she's not bad, but she better not do that again. So
Love that.
I was really afraid that I might get fired that night. But I luckily I
Let me ask you though,
didn't,
like,
so.
not to change the subject, but like, why did you have to turn the power down with AM?
So AM radio stations, they travel through the ground, but at night
Oh.
they actually beam up and they hit the ionosphere and come back down. So FM stations are line of sight, so you're always going to see an FM transmitter on top of a hill.
Right, right.
And it's line of sight. So whatever's at the top of that hill, whatever it can see,
Yeah.
like at the top of Smith Hill, that's where the FM radio station can go, depending
Right.
on how much frequency they have. So
AM is through the
but
ground?
you'll always see an AM transmitter in a swamp
Wow.
because the water helps it to transmit. And back in the days when I
like
worked
by
on
Muck Road and Road,
yeah,
is that one? Like,
yeah,
is that
yeah.
one?
So that's why they're always
because
they're
I'm
located near a swamp.
I'm also like a regular on WKAL when
yeah.
I have school breaks, and I think that the transmitter there is like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
or something
So-
like that. Like you talked about being out somewhere
Right.
like that. So cool, wow.
Yeah.
So, anyways, back to your stories though. Like, so
Yeah.
WTLB, like your first job.
It was my first job, yeah. Oh, I've got one other story that I have to tell you about Herkimer before we
Oh,
go
yeah,
in. So this actually really happened to me. So one of the things that we had to do as a student at Herkimer is we had to go out and do election coverage, and we do polling at the polling places. So I was assigned to go to Stroud Junior High in Rome.
Mhm.
So I drove my car. You have to remember back in these days, we didn't have cell phones.
Oh, right.
You know, we didn't have GPS. We didn't know where we were going. So
Yeah.
I got to a
Plus, used cars back then were as crappier than they
Oh,
are
they were-
now.
they
I
were
remember when I
awful.
was in college,
Just
it was like,
awful,
yeah,
yeah.
I was lucky if I made it down
Right.
through way.
So
you know?
so I went to do election polling early in the morning. It was dark out. So I went to a school in Rome, and I walked in the front door, and I didn't see anybody. So I walked around, wonder where the people are. Where are the polling people? So I walked out what I thought was like a back door, and that's when I saw the sign as the door closed behind me, Rome School for the Deaf.
Oh my gosh.
I turned around and I said, okay, what am I going to do now?
I know they couldn't even
It's-
talk to you. Like
they
you
couldn't hear me.
Yeah.
So at first
you're a
I was
student, you're-
going to knock on the door, and then I'm like, wait, that's
Yeah,
not
right,
going
right.
to work. So, and I remember wearing a dress that day, and I had all my notebooks and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I threw those over the fence and proceeded to
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
climb over the fence and,
That's a reporter.
and find Stroud Junior High
I like that.
after that.
That's great. That's
But
great.
so I had a great learning experience at
Yeah.
WTLB. Back in those days, we played 45s, and on the wall was a big clock, and on the clock were like pie squares in all different colors. And so you'd play a green song followed by an orange song followed by a pink song, and all of the 45s were divided into either current songs might be in the red category,
Yeah,
and oldies
yeah.
might be the blue category.
Yeah.
And so you'd follow a clock, and when you'd pick out all the
So
the
like
music.
maybe like a fast pace and a slow
Yeah,
pace,
uh-huh.
and then a current and an older song.
Exactly.
Oh wow.
But
yeah.
but the nice thing was you actually got to choose the music.
Yeah.
And you
from
could choose
from the like
right,
color
and
from
you
the
could,
class categories
yeah,
there.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, and you could choose what you thought would sound good together. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That must have been
So
great.
that was kind of fun. I really enjoyed that. And later, when we had to follow music logs,
I was
and
going to say it
we
must
didn't have
ta-
any
taken away some of
flexibility.
the-
That was, and
Why did that happen?
well, it happened because things became more computerized.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they could,
And, like, more-
the program director could have control of all the music.
And like more corporatized, like
Yeah,
across
yeah,
like
absolutely.
nationwide kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so from WTLB, I was offered this Time for Romance show.
At KG
on
104?
KG 104.
Yeah.
And
Now, was that a big deal to go from AM to FM?
it was a huge thing to go from AM to FM.
Why?
Well, people would say, the last time I heard an AM radio station, I was driving around in my uncle's truck, and it only had an AM radio.
And this would have been the 80s too, right?
Yeah.
Even by then.
People were already tuning away from AM radio.
Right.
There were a lot of seniors and older people that still listen to AM radio.
Right.
For instance, like I would time into news segments and into Paul Harvey.
Oh yeah.
That kind of thing. And now
Right.
you know the rest of the
Right.
story. But so when I got on KG 104 and A Time for Romance, that was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of hard work. But I would talk to a gentleman by the name of Bob Dearborn. He had a show called Nighttime America.
I remember that.
And it was
syndicated though, right?
It was syndicated.
Yeah.
And it was nationwide. And so he
Bob
would
Dearborn,
he would call once in a while, and he would say, "I'm just calling to make sure," because he would mention it at night, that Linda Ray's still doing the nighttime show, and that I think it was Bill Whiteman at the time was doing mornings.
I remember him too. Yeah.
And so then one day he called, and he said, "I'm coming into town with a friend of mine from WCBS Radio in New York, and we're thinking about buying, but you can't tell anybody, but we're thinking about buying a radio station in Utica."
Wow.
Yeah. So I met with them, and
I kind of think I know what station you're going to say.
yeah.
I think this makes like a good cliffhanger here. So maybe we should go to commercial now.
Sure.
Because I sort of feel like I know exactly what station you're going to say. It's one of my favorites here. So today I'm talking to Linda Ray about her successful career in local radio and how the industry has evolved to compete in local market. We ended the story with a cliffhanger about a great new station that was coming to the area. This would have been like late 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I know what it is. But also when we return, Bud Green, who runs the Rock 107 and the KG 104 tribute pages on Facebook, will join us by phone. I'm Ron Klopfanstein. You're with 95.5 FM The Heat. This is a Hot Seat Media Monday. More after the break. This is Ron Klopfanstein, and you're in the Hot Seat on a Media Monday.
I have one thing to say. You better work.
Rock 107, Central New York's all-hit music station. It's Bud in the nighttime, rolling non-stop with your hits all night long. A brand new one from Bon Jovi, Rock 107. Rock.
All right, so that was Bud in the Nighttime. Bud in the Nighttime is on the phone. Bud Green. He runs the Rock 107 and the KG 104 tribute pages on Facebook. But I think you've run some other ones too. I kept coming across some more today.
Yes, there's a Utica Rural Radio tribute, which kind of puts them all together in some of the stations I did work at. And let's see, I believe I have 98.7, Z98.7, which Linda used to work for.
Oh, really? Oh,
at
you have
one
a New York
time.
Z page?
Yeah, I have it. There's a Z page. There's a WIBX page. It's just different people that ask me to do different pages for them. WRUN, KG 104, and WTLB. So there's the big magnificent. What is it, 7? I believe I have out there.
Well,
So
I'm sorry that I'm surprised that I missed that one though. So so let me ask you, Bud. So what is your interest in local radio? How many stations have you worked at? I know you were with Rock 107.
yes, most of them actually. Those are stations that are that I mentioned. I actually worked for at one time. I worked at KG 104 and WRUN on Thomas Road. Then I worked at the Rock 107 WTLB building over there in Washington Mills. And I worked at you know what? I forgot 96 Frog. I worked with them on South J Street. You know, as I say, when I was young in my career, you had to move around a little bit to get more hours and you know, and get more experience and work with some great people like Linda and Kuchenbacher and JR was definitely a big help to my career. Jim Wrights is what I'm talking about. He really launched me off and taught me a lot. But my start was at KG 104 and WRUN right there on Thomas Road. So,
How did you get that start?
Basically, I just graduated from high school, and I ran a DJ service for quite a few years, right out of when I was in high school. I said, you know what, I want to do this full time. So I of course, I used to listen to Linda, and when she was on Z98.7, and of course listen to Rock 107. I used to flip between the two stations all the time. I said, I want to do that. So I started working for KG 104, running Solid Gold Saturday Night with Bob Worthington. And while I was doing that, I was running into the production room, and I was cutting air checks and sending them out to the other program directors. And I got a response from Jim Wright, and he said, come on over, and he put me to work over there. I stayed at KG and WRUN for about a year, and when I say both stations, I mean I do fill-ins on the on the AM once in a great while. They ran like a business radio format, and then of course KG. I actually moved from Solid Gold Saturday Night to overnights. As I say, just as certain people move, you just move into positions. But when they went full satellite, I said, you know what, I got to do something different, and then that's when I went with Rock 107. And it was a good time. It really was. You could actually, if you leave one station, you had a job at another one at that time.
I was gonna say, was it hard to move around a lot when you would go to a new station with a genre that was totally different than when you came from? I mean, I would think that like at a time maybe when you began, at the time when disc jockeys were picking more of their own songs, it must have been hard if you were working for a station where you weren't as familiar or didn't even like the music. How did you deal with that?
Well, here's the thing with that. The program directors know what they're doing most of the time. As I say, they know how to pick the music and all that. I enjoyed all kinds of music. That's what didn't bother me. I was a DJ before, back in the day. I mean, when you're at a school dance or you're at a wedding or something, I mean, you're playing all different types of music.
Oh, so you like have a strong preference for like any particular.
Well, here's a good example. Like Let's take Rock 107. It was a totally different offshoot of what I was playing at KG 104, but it didn't bother me because some of the songs I played on KG 104 also were hits on Rock 107 at the time. So sometimes they intermingle. The style of delivery was a little bit different. You had to have that real upbeat. I mean, you had to really step it up when you were on Rock 107. But whereas KG was more of a laid-back type sound.
That's right. It was more like the romantic one. It was kind of like adult contemporary, I think, at a time before we kind of knew what that meant. Or before I knew what that meant.
Yes, that was the first one, was the adult contemporary. Then I had to step it up when I went to Rock 107. And then the Rock 107, Jim taught me that certain delivery, that word economy and the whole 9 yards, that it really worked out on that station. And not only that, at the same time, I got a chance to work for 96 Frog, because their stations were kind of intermingling. They were what they were doing is they were sharing the same sales staff. And what it is I went to work for both of them. And even though it was country music, it was still that same upbeat delivery. So I didn't really have to change anything. I just had to have more knowledge of country music, which I did. I listened to it now and then. It wasn't necessarily my favorite kind of music at the time, but Rock 107 was my dream job. That was it. I thought I was going to go to Rock 107 and that be it. But unfortunately, times change, and as I say, demands change. So that's what happened there.
So how did you learn that delivery? Like when he taught you how to like adjust your tone or your speed, or like how do people learn that? That's something that's always interested me because I never really had that like opportunity to learn that stuff. Like what do they teach you?
What you do is you have a great program director like Jim, and even some other program directors, where they take time out of their week, and you go in, you sit down with you sit down with them for an hour, and they listen to your air check, they listen to your tape, and they say, okay, do this, don't do that. And I sit there with a pad and paper and write down what I can do and what I can't do, and he would give you suggestions on how to do it, how to talk to people. Don't talk to a whole group of people. Talk to just one person. Pick somebody out of your audience and talk to that particular person. In my case, it was a young lady. I'm talking to this nice young lady. You walk up to her at a bar and say, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, did you hear the latest so and so?" That's how you need to do. You need that delivery, that style, and those are the things that make you a polished jock. I still use those things today. Even in the job I'm doing today, I've been in the radio business now for, well, not quite as long as Linda, but about 30 plus years. at this time.
So you sort of visualize like you're talking to an actual person.
Yes.
It's like your
Yes.
approach. How would you describe
Exactly.
like back in the 80s or even like early 90s? How would you describe the differences kind of between like say Rock 107 and KG 104? Like for you as a DJ, like if you're going from like one station to the other, you know, how would you put into words like how your delivery was different?
Okay, well, KG 104, you have to speak to a kind of a different. You know, it's always the same kind of audience though, 18 to 34.
Mhm.
You gotta speak between that girl. But on Rock 107, it's more like 18-year-olds younger. You know, you have this, you know, and I had that young sound at that time. You can tell it's way different now. I couldn't do that radio style now because I'm old, and people would figure that one out. But now the adult contemporary makes more sense to me because I'm able to talk to the young ladies that are 34 years old and stuff, and have an idea of that style of delivery. That's what it is. You have to pick out that style of delivery, and it isn't just the style of delivery. You have to keep up to what is going on with your target audience. You know,
Yeah.
what's happening in the world. What's something that they want to talk about. And the best thing to do is ask them questions and let them talk, because that way, let's just say you get an idea of what they're interested in and what have you. As I say, and then of course the advertisers, they'll pick they'll pick that certain group and say, okay, the 34-year-olds are listening to we'll say Light 98.7.
So
that's what it is. It's a whole different spiel right there.
How do you think?
Go ahead.
Oh, how do you think that like your approach to the work and to the industry changed over time? Like as you move from station to station, I mean, is there a lot of differences in how stations do stuff other than like maybe the delivery and the tone? Like, is there was there a lot of difference in how they like approach the work of having a radio station?
Yes, well, it's way different now. I mean, the thing of it is now is, I mean, you still have to have the delivery, and you still have to have the tone, you still have to have all that, but you have a lot more resources now. I mean, you have the internet, you can go crazy. I mean, you can find anything and give an answer, and with a device in your hand, you can have the answers to questions and what they're interested in, the latest news. I mean, you don't have to go in the technology has really changed everything. That's what's done it. And it's some for the best and some for the worst. I mean, I don't mind voice. I was kind of against it in the beginning. I didn't like voice tracking at first. But
What is voice tracking?
Voice tracking is when you record your whole show ahead of time.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
you do.
Yeah, so like
Linda, jump in, please. Linda's going to join the conversation here.
so I can speak to what voice
Please go
tracking
ahead.
is, because I've done a lot of it over the last course of maybe the last 10 years or so. So you will go into a studio and you'll have all of your music on a log, and there's a highlight, talk here, talk here, talk here, talk here. And so you can listen to like the last 5 seconds of a song, you lay down your track, then you listen to the next 5-10 seconds of the next song,
Yeah.
and then you move the log to the next position, so
Right.
that you're not sitting there as the songs are segueing from song
For
to
like a
song.
whole 4-hour shift.
Yeah,
Or,
so you can do a 4-hour shift if you walk in prepared, maybe in 20 minutes, maybe an hour, depending on
yeah.
how much talking you're going to do. So
Yeah.
it's
What's lost by doing it like that?
well, nothing's live. So
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of a time that I was doing a voice track on a weekend. I don't quite remember what station, but it doesn't really matter. I knew that the Batman movie was going to be huge that weekend. So I was on a Sunday, and I said something about the Batman movie was huge at the box office this weekend, and then found out before that happened that there was a mass shooting at a Batman movie.
Oh, right.
And now
Right, Colorado.
I'm out of town. I did this 2 days ago. There's nothing I can do about it.
What did you do?
I didn't do anything.
Could the station like pull that segment? Where you
I
mentioned it, or-
would
It would've
have
been
I
too
would have
hard.
had to have known exactly when I
Yeah.
said it and between what
Right.
songs, and
Right.
who knows.
Yeah.
I just knew
yeah.
I had said it, and then
Right.
I couldn't go back and erase it.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
felt foolish. There were no repercussions from it, but I
Yeah.
felt dumb.
Right. Right. So this was like as far back as the late 80s.
Oh
they
no,
were
this
sort
was
of
this
did
was probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, so a recent bat. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this was like the first bat.
There was a mass shooting. I don't know how many years ago it was. 7 to 8 years ago.
When did this like
The voice tracking became very popular right before I left radio full time, and that would have been in like 2005,
Say
6.
2000.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, did you find it a lot harder to do your show like that?
No, it
Because-
was stupid easy.
Oh, okay.
And
So
but I
you can
didn't.
just imagine people were going to hear it and visualize.
No,
it
but
when
if
they would
you,
hear
but
it.
if you, but if you made a mistake, you just erased it and started over again. It
Yeah.
took all the spontaneity out of it. You weren't going to say stupid stuff like,
Yeah.
you know, partly cloudy with a chance of snowflowers today. You know,
Right.
it took that fun of the chance that you were going to make a mistake
Yeah.
away,
They
and
realize.
people could perfect everything they did, and it's kind of like with AI.
Right.
And I'm really afraid of what AI is going to do to the possibility of radio.
Right. What do you
Because-
think it might do?
Well, I'm afraid because I remember one time for a April Fool's Day prank, Kook and I decided that instead of doing our show, we would type the whole show out, and we would use computer generated voices. What was that? I forgot what that show
Oh, yeah.
was on.
Oh, yeah.
TV where the guys-
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
Kind
where
of
they
a
watch the
Dragon
movies.
Naturally Speaking or something
Yeah.
like that. I remember that.
Yeah. So anyway, we did the whole.
Oh, Mystery Science
Yes,
Theater. so
mystery.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what I was looking. Mystery Science
Is it-
Theater. So we did it sort of like that.
Yeah.
But the whole show, like we'd say, all right, this is what happened here and there, and then I'd laugh and go, ha ha. But it was all computerized.
Yeah.
Well, now you don't have to be there. If you can,
No.
you can watch certain things on YouTube now, and you can tell this is computer generated speech. You know, so they've got some guy who's got a
Oh,
good
yeah.
voice, and they're doing the whole Yankee story, and they don't need the Yankee announcer anymore.
Right. Right. I mean,
You know,
it worries me too a little bit.
Yeah, it's very scary.
It totally is. And like with the AI software that I use to like make this into
Mm-hmm.
a podcast, like what it does is once I upload this file, it's going to make it into it's going to transcribe it 1st,
Mm-hmm.
and then I could literally like take words and move them around, and like it would do it and make it sound like people
Sure.
said it. You know,
Sure.
it's like, I mean, there's like opportunities for misuse too. You know, it's scary kind of, and you wonder like, what role is there for us, like YouTube? What I wonder like is humans in this field with computers and AI and stuff. What will we still do?
Well, we can still, still needs the input. You know, AI can do only sort of a certain amount. We still have to have the input on. I mean, it's not human. You still have to have human input, and that's what helps. That's what we're known for. That's what us jocks are known for. We're known for human input, being able to take information and put it in and decipher it and decide what's relevant. That's what I mean. The computer can't determine relevance.
How
Not necessarily.
well, Bud, thank you for your time. I'm going to have links to all of your tribute pages on our show notes at uticaphoenix.net/Media Monday, and then you and I are going to talk down the road too with a show about history of local radio too. We'll talk about that later on, and but thank you for now, and I'll have all that stuff on our show notes. Today I'm talking to Linda Ray and Bud Green. We're celebrating local radio from Rock 107 to KG 104 to New York Z. I'm Ron Klopfanstein. You're with 95.5 FM The Heat. This is Hot Seat Media Monday. More after the break. I'm Klopfanstein, and you're in the Hot Seat on a Media Monday. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you to Bud Green, who has the KG 104 and the Rock 107 tribute pages on Facebook. I'll have links to that at uticaphoenix.net/Media Monday. On the next Hot Seat Media Monday, my guest will be author William Welch. He has a new book out, and he's the editor of Doubly Mad, Utica's independent journal of art and ideas. On the 24th, I'll talk to the organizers of the Trans Rights Rally in Utica. And on Monday, March 31st, my guest will be Gridley Page AM. That's going to be an exciting show. If you're on Facebook, and if you're my age, you probably follow Gridley Page. There's a lot of things we're going to talk about, stuff 80s and 70s and handheld video games, and I'm going to talk about TV shows from the 80s and the 70s, Gridley Page AM. So that's March 3rd, 31st. Every Monday, there's a great show here at Hot Seat Media Monday.
Hit music, WRCK, Utica, Rome, rock,
107. Rock 107, yeah, open 24 hours a day. And it's time to put some romance on your radio with a good night line. Saying hi to Phil, love to Tanya. To Mark from Rachel, hi, Julie and Shelley from Ange. To Eric from Tanya. To Megan from Mike, remember the symbols. To Slater, love from Jeslo, Julie.
That clip was of the late Eric J. Price. What an amazing voice. He was also a very popular DJ in the Mohawk Valley at some of the same stations that Linda worked in at the same time, and Bud. Sadly, he died 3 years ago at age 54. I wanted to include that because he too was always one of my he was one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's there's something about voices that you hear every day. Same with TV. You know, this is one of the things that I've always been a scholar of soaps, and one of the things that Erna Phillips is the person who like created the daytime soap, and one of the things that she understood is that with TV, with the close-ups, with the everydayness of the Monday through Friday thing, how much people would get connected to the actors and the characters
Oh,
and
absolutely.
the voices. Radio's like that too, you know? And you must have had like a few weeks ago, Susan Nackley and Kathy Cantino were
Very good
here.
friends of mine.
Yeah, and they talked about, you know, that wonderful connection. And like, I had that connection too. Like, we have a nice connection with the public.
What
And
was
what
nice
does that
in
feel like?
what was nice in radio was the anonymity of people not knowing who you were. But as time went
Yeah.
on, I used to go out in Syracuse because I
I bet people knew who
didn't
you
feel
were.
didn't
You're
feel that
pretty
comfortable.
famous.
Didn't feel that comfortable going out in Utica.
Really?
Because, well, if I really wanted to let loose and have a good time.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
and believe me, it was before Facebook and
Oh my
things.
God, I can't imagine now.
Yeah, I can't imagine now.
Right. Yeah.
I really can't.
See, I never let loose and have a good time. I just work, so I
Right,
guess I'm
so-
okay. So.
yeah, that's all good. So I was.
Well,
so
yeah,
when we
it
were,
would be. That's a whole other thing I never thought about. Like,
yeah,
it would
but
have been.
most of my
Yeah.
semi-notoriety, if you want to call it, was prior to
Right.
Facebook and stuff.
You know, the thing too is like, what would have been different for you then? It would be different now. Is
Mhm.
like now, anybody who does anything publicly, you know, it's like it's kind of like you're setting yourself up there as a pinata for the public to
Oh,
hit
yeah.
you with sticks. So I can just imagine like being a
I've
new
never
DJ.
I've never been that comfortable with self-promotion.
Oh,
so,
no?
not really.
See, I love that.
But
It's
now,
funny, but,
now I
you know,
think it's
you
part
got
part
to.
of the job,
Oh my
right?
gosh, yeah.
And so back in the days when I was in radio, the Bob Dearborns of the world,
yeah.
he came into Utica with his partners. They came from big markets and national radio.
Tell
And
me the story. That
They
we
were
cliffhanger here.
dramatic and theatrical, and everybody had a name, and it was flame throwing hits, you know.
Yeah.
And when he told me, "You're the fox that rocks," I said, "Oh no." I'm
So
not-
he's the one that made that
Oh
up?
yeah. it
Oh
was
my
so
God, that's so great.
It was so uncomfortable for me at
Oh,
first,
really?
you know, because you
It's so
then
cool,
You're
though.
supposed to live up
It's a lot
to
of pressure,
that. Yeah,
though.
it's a lot of
But
pressure.
you did.
Yeah. and the nighttime girl was all night diner,
Oh.
like an all night diner.
Yeah. Oh,
you
right,
know?
right. Oh, I
so,
get it. Yeah.
And there was Ivy Hamilton.
So is this
for
so? What
Hamilton.
station is this?
This is New York Z.
That's New York
Yeah,
Z.
New York
Oh my
Z.
God! I feel like
Yeah.
we should have like a drum roll here,
Yeah,
like
Rock and
cymbals.
Rick, Chuck
New York
Knight,
Z.
yeah,
Oh my
it was-
gosh!
Yeah,
Yes.
it was.
So
it was really
that
cool.
was so exciting.
It was
I mean,
very exciting.
As a reporter, you're not supposed to ask people like, how did it feel? But I gotta ask you, how did it feel to be at New York Z?
It
must
was
have been-
it was really cool. So let me tell you some
Yeah.
of the stuff that they used to do. So when we first went on the air, they got us all white tuxedos with the New York Z logo on the back.
Wow.
And then they would hire a limousine. On Saturday afternoons, we would go out to football games in a limousine with our
Oh my gosh.
with our tuxedos
Oh,
on.
wow, that's
you
so
know?
great.
And finally, I was making a livable wage because
Yeah.
prior to that, I wasn't making
'Cause
very much money at all.
now the rumor
these
was-
people were big time, so
Let me ask
they
you.
paid us okay.
It's been a long time, so I think it's
Uh-huh.
okay to ask this now.
Yeah.
The rumor was back then that you got paid double when you went to New York Z.
It was pretty close to double.
Okay, that's what everyone
Yeah.
said. So good
Yeah.
for you. Good
Yeah.
for you. I'm
Yeah.
glad that's true.
Yeah, it was. And
And
then
you guys gave away an
yeah, we
IWOC
gave
too.
we
I
did.
remember
We gave
that.
away the first car that we gave away was a Camaro. It was
Okay.
a beautiful blue Camaro. and you had to, I forget.
Keep your hand on it at the mall, I think, right?
No,
or was that the
no,
IROC?
The Camaro.
I wanted that
The
IROC.
Camaro, you had to win a key.
Oh,
so we
okay.
gave away 98 keys.
Yeah.
But the sad thing was, when we got to the dealership that day, everybody lined up and everybody got a key. Well, what happened when the winning key went into the car?
What happened?
It went ding, 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 because the door was open.
Oh my God. so anticlimactic.
A little bit, because I think it was
Yeah.
maybe key number 20,
Yeah,
and the other
yeah.
people were like, oh. But then we gave away an IROC, and it was
remember
it was a
that.
hands-on
St.
marathon
Town Square
in the
Mall.
mall.
Yes.
And it went for, I think,
A long time.
over 98 hours.
Yeah.
And one of the funniest things, my friend Bill Morris, he'll kill me for telling this story, but he had his hands on the car. He was playing Trivial Pursuit. And he got the right answer, and he went, yes!
Oh no! Oh no! And he lost his
lost
shot.
the car.
Oh boy!
So, New York City was very popular.
So now, was that owned by a company in New York?
No, well, it was owned by this small conglomerate.
And Bob Dearborn, he was a syndicated talk show host.
He was a syndicated talk show host, and I don't know if he still was, because he came on and did mornings for us for a while. So I don't think he was doing that anymore. But he and his partners were buying up other.
So he was an investor.
He was
so like he was taking his show. Okay,
so he was an investor, and then they went down south and they bought a whole bunch of radio stations, and I actually went to Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
And I thought about they had offered me a job down there
to like establish it.
To help establish it. But when I got to Knoxville, Tennessee, I got a lot of ma'ams, and I thought, wait a minute, I'm a woman.
Yeah.
And they want me to be a program director of a radio station down south.
Oh yeah.
They weren't ready.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. You
Yeah,
know, I was to put up with what
that.
I would have. There was
Yeah,
enough
yeah.
stereotypes and,
Right, right.
and problems being a woman in the
Was it
industry.
very
as it
macho
was.
business?
Yeah, you had to let a lot of stuff just kind of roll off.
I kind of
when
imagine
when
that.
I worked at Rock 107, well, actually TLB, not so much Rock 107, but at
Yeah.
TLB, I was the only woman in the whole building,
Oh, yeah.
except for the sales staff. So I'd be playing a song, and they'd say, "Linda, you're record skipping," and I'd go to the bathroom. They'd say, "You're record skipping," and I'd run back, and of
And it
course
wasn't.
it wasn't. But they had a
Yeah.
speaker in the men's room, but they didn't have a speaker in the ladies'
Oh.
room. So that's how it went. But
It's funny because we think of radio as like kind of a 50-50
Mhm.
thing, but back then you're saying it
Right.
wasn't. It
No.
was harder to break
No.
in.
so when
What about in management? I imagine the same. It was
Yeah,
probably-
I was a program director very young at Classic 94.9 for a very short period, and I
Yeah.
worked for Galaxy Communications,
Uh-huh.
and I had a very bad experience.
What does the program director do?
So the program director is in charge of all the disc jockeys, and they're the person that goes through the air checks with the other people, but they're also the person that makes sure that just the radio station as a whole runs the way it's supposed to,
Yeah.
and they're in charge of the logs and the music, and basically they're in charge of everything. I
Yeah.
thought that's what I wanted to do. I never wanted to
Right.
be ever in charge again after that.
Were
But
you on the air at that time?
I was, yeah.
You were. So
I
you were
was.
doing both.
I was, yeah. And well, I don't want
Yeah.
to talk too
No,
much
it's
about
not-
that because
but
it
I mean, that's
wasn't
what a
it wasn't a
program
real
director
good
does.
experience. So when I left there,
Yeah.
I went to teach at Herkimer College for a
Mhm.
while
Yeah.
in the radio television program. And I had agreed when I left there that I would stay off the air for 6 months. It was
Yeah.
part of the
Oh, like a non-compete thing?
non-compete thing.
Yeah.
So I had been teaching, and one day my students came in and they said, "Have you heard about the contest on the radio?" I said, "No, what contest?" And they said, "Well, Rock 107's having a contest, and they're looking for somebody to work with this guy, Kuchenbacher."
Oh.
So I called JR and I said,
Wow.
"You've got a ringer coming in, right? At the end of the week?"
Yeah.
He goes, "No." He goes, "Why, do you want to be the ringer?" And I'm like, "Well, my 6
Wow.
months is up."
Yeah.
So so I went, and it was a contest,
Yeah.
and I won the contest.
Yeah.
But I
To be
could
the
have
permanent.
lost,
Yeah, you-
but
right.
I did win, and then that was the beginning of Linda Ray and
Was
Kuchenbacher
that
on
your
Rock
first
107.
experience with a co-host?
No. I had worked on New York City. I had done morning radio,
Mm.
and I had worked with a gentleman by the name of Jay Flannery, and then Randy Jay, who was another a fairly famous disc jockey. He worked at KG 104, and so we worked together for a short period. We were really good together, but the format changed, and when they changed the format to Light 98.7, it was Light and Easy 98.7. So all they wanted us to do was to open up the mic and say, more music, less talk.
Oh, I
Light
see.
and Easy,
Yeah.
98.7. It was like, oh. So it was.
They always say less talk, and every time I hear that, I always think it's not less talk we want; it's less commercials.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah.
you know, it's never the DJs.
But
you know,
but
it's like,
and I like Barbara Streisand, and I like Neil Diamond, and I like Barry Manilow.
But it
I'm
probably
not
got a little
I'm not
boring after a
but I'm
while,
not
you know?
I'm not adverse to
Yeah.
any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it really broke my heart because we
Yeah,
we
I
had. You know, they
What
actually
happened?
they took the phone out of the studio so that nobody could
Oh.
call me because
Oh my
I
gosh.
was crying all the time.
Wow.
So
yeah.
that's when you know.
What happened to New York Z? Like I just remember it being the biggest thing. Then I just remember it gone. Like I just you know.
Well, everything's about ratings
things
and
do
changes,
change, you know,
and
I mean, you
we
know.
had a change of ownership.
Yeah.
And before they had changed from the the Flamin' Hot Hits and all of that,
Yeah.
for a while they went to a different format, which is a classic hit format, which
Oh,
is
I never knew
not
that.
which is not a top 40 format.
Yeah.
It's a format that's very popular now,
Yeah.
but it wasn't then.
It wasn't
And they were playing like disco music and contemporary music and kind of
Yeah.
mixing it all together.
Oh, I
But
see.
it was sort of an oldies classic hits format.
Yeah.
It was a good format, but it
But it
didn't
just
didn't catch on fast enough.
So was Hot 107 around at that time? Was it the competition like that?
Well,
the-
so we
the
went
top
we
40
went to
competition, or-
we went to Rock 107.
Yeah.
And we were Rock 107 until like 1993, 94. And then we had a big party.
Let me tell
and
you,
they gave us
I
all
remember
new
that.
jackets.
Oh,
and
okay. I was
they
going to say something else.
right,
But, yeah.
but they rebranded the radio station,
Hot
but
107, right?
Hot 107, to better
I love that.
to better reflect
Yeah.
the fact that we were
Yeah.
playing hot
Right,
contemporary music.
Yeah.
But I think in retrospect, it was a ploy because they were selling us, and they were
Oh.
going to go to a classic rock format,
Oh.
and the classic format wanted to go to Rock 107 to be our
Yeah.
classic rock station,
Yeah.
and so they had to rebrand us something else.
So they kind of didn't want that name to be used?
No,
Like,
they wanted
I
to
see.
get away from Rock 107, call us Hot 107 for a little
So
while.
let me ask you, because I remember this happening. Did this
Mhm.
actually happen? So I remember a time, and I recorded this, and I had it on a cassette tape, and I wish I could find this.
that we locked ourselves in the
Yes,
studio like
yes. Oh my gosh.
WKRP.
So it was like the last day of Hot 107, and someone
Yeah.
bought it. And so
Yes.
everyone like barricaded themselves, and then all the fans came down. And did that happen?
It actually happened.
I wish I
yeah.
had that tape. But
Yeah,
tell,
they were
tell me about
very
it.
angry.
It must have been so exciting, though.
Well, so we had contracts with Pepsi and we had contracts with Coca-Cola, and
Yeah,
it was early
right.
in the spring. It was in June, and so we had prize cabinets full of stuff,
Yeah.
and I didn't have anything to do with
Right.
with giving all that stuff away. But somehow, when we found out that we were losing our jobs on Monday,
Right.
between Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, somehow it got out that we had closets full of
Give it
stuff.
away.
So people
And
showed
the
up,
prize box.
and then I remember
That was crazy. That was so exciting on this Sunday. You
I'm
know?
sure, but I remember Kook and I being in the studio, and the studio was small, and I remember being in the studio, and we knew we were supposed to leave.
Right.
We knew we were supposed to go, but we were like, yeah, you know what? We're losing our jobs
cares?
anyway. Who cares? We'll stay here till they kick us out. And I remember
That
we-
was epic.
but it was.
It
But
was.
I didn't have any stuff there. I just had my
Oh.
headphones, and
So
it was all good. Yeah.
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 So that's what happens when someone buys a station, right? Like everyone's gone,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
it's like you
yeah.
know, it's
So-
a whole new thing, you know.
Yeah, luckily I was still working at the college, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
then I worked for Wow FM for a little while, and Coop went and worked for the station out in, I don't know, Massachusetts or something,
Oh, okay.
and he came back to Wow, and right when he came back, I got offered the morning job on Kiss FM because they had just brought in a brand new crowd of people, and I needed the money, so I left.
Yeah.
I felt bad, but you know,
Right.
a lot of times, you know, it had to do with who's going to pay me more and who's going to give me a better insurance
Oh yeah, of course.
plan.
Right.
And, you know,
right.
so I was with Kiss FM and Clear Channel. Clear Channel Communications was one of the very largest groups in the country.
Yeah.
And so when we saw it all coming down, that they were going to sell off all the small market stations. I was working with, you know, the whole crowd from WOUR and KISS and Mix and all of us together. They told us if we stayed and did what we were supposed to do, did our due diligence, they would give us a full 9 months severance.
Oh.
So we stayed and
Yeah.
we did what we needed to do,
Yeah.
and then we got the 9 months severance, and it was nice, and then it was
That's decent.
time to find something else to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you account for? Like your longevity in the business. Like, you know, you've always had one station after another. You've done so well.
You know,
What qualities do you have that like people who want to succeed in this field should emulate?
I don't know. That's a really hard question, but I will say that I had a lot of large market opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
and Utica embraced me, and I embraced Utica.
Yeah.
And you know, I remember all those cold mornings on Heart Run Saturday and Breast Cancer Sunday, and being out among the public and being a part of the community. And nothing's like Utica. I don't think there's
Yeah.
another place in the world. You know, Utica is you.
Yeah,
You
right,
know?
right, exactly.
You are
yeah.
Utica, and Utica
Yeah.
is you. But
So like that connection.
so
is so
I think it
important.
was just, you know, I came from a small town. Utica embraced me. I embraced the city.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would have been the same had I gone to Cleveland or Baltimore or any of these other places where I had job offers.
What
You know?
do you listen to?
I listen to everything.
Who do you listen to? Like what
Uh,
hosts? Like do you ever listen to NPR or talk shows or
I like
what
talk.
DJs?
I like talk shows, but I'm an audiobook freak.
Uh-huh.
I listen to audiobooks constantly.
Yeah.
And if I were to have a different career, it's too late now, but
Well, not necessarily.
well,
I mean,
no, but
I became a
would
teacher when I was 49, so.
I would love to narrate an audiobook sometime.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
like a voice.
Mhm.
Yeah, right.
So something like that would be fun.
What advice do you have for me as a talk show host?
Oh, I think you're doing a great job. You made me feel at ease. I thought
Oh,
I was going to
thank
be
you.
very nervous.
You
believe it
did?
or not.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't
Oh.
feel that way. So
Well, I'm really glad.
Thank you. But I do still have dead air dreams.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And-
you know,
and-
it's
and
funny.
in my-
There's a lot of pressure with radio.
Mhm.
Like you think, what if this doesn't work, or that doesn't work, or it's almost time, or you know.
And for people that don't understand what dead air is, that's the one thing you don't want to have when you're in radio. You
Yeah, I
always
know.
want to
That's
have.
the worst thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you do something for me before you go? Could you just say you're listening to the Hot Seat Media Monday with
Sure.
Ron Klopfanstein on 95.5 FM The Heat?
Do you have that written down
I
somewhere?
don't. So if you can, any that you can remember, I'll think it's so massively cool. Hot Seat Media Monday, 95.5,
Okay.
any combination.
Sure. You're listening to 95.5 The Heat with Ron Klopfanstein.
Oh my gosh, you just made this show. You made my life. Thank you so much. Now I gotta find my scripture so I can wrap things up here. My guests today were DJ Linda Ray and Bud Green, and we talked about their careers in local radio. I'll have the video, podcast, and show notes online Wednesday at uticaphoenix.net/Media Monday. Our sound engineer is Jonathan Brooks. He's DJ J Easy. He's up next. And Jim Hale records the show for YouTube and podcasts. Nabil Khan is our entertainment correspondent. Look for this show Wednesday, uticaphoenix.net/Media Monday. I'm Ron Klopfanstein, and this has been The Hot Seat on